Mr. Speaker, Budget 2016 also, as all members of this House know, commits considerable investments to infrastructure, an important step in growing Canada's economy and in strengthening our middle class. Investments in affordable housing, investments in broadband, investments in roads, public transit and wastewater are all investments that are important to the people of Newmarket Aurora, and I suggest, Mr. Speaker, people across this land. This is an important facet of this budget, and it is one that will help grow our economy for years to come. Canada's debt to GDP ratio is the best in the G7 right now. Now is the time to borrow money. Now is the time to invest in Canadians. Now is the time to invest in long-term growth, Mr. Speaker. These investments are sorely needed. I can think of no better time. I can think of no better policy that would grow the economy in the short term, in the midterm, and the long term than these significant and important commitments to infrastructure investments, Mr. Speaker. And that's why I'm so proud of that component of Budget 2016. Recently, in my riding of Newmarket Aurora, we had a pre-budget 2017 town hall, and I spoke with members of my regional council there and asked them to prioritize what they saw as their infrastructure priorities. I think it'll shock no one in this House that things such as wastewater treatment, things such as roads, things such as public transportation, and importantly, Mr. Speaker, things such as affordable housing were on top of their list. I live in a growing part of the country. The growth has put municipal and regional governments under some strain, Mr. Speaker, and as their Member of Parliament, I'm happy to offer some support to their priorities, some support in the form of considerable investment in infrastructure that will help my regional government and help my municipal partners deliver on what's important to the great people of Newmarket and the great people of Aurora, Mr. Speaker. And that's something I think that we all bear in mind when we consider the important policies of how does that play out in our own ridings, Mr. Speaker. And I, for one, can say that it's playing out nicely in Newmarket Aurora. It's much needed and it's much appreciated. Another important component, Mr. Speaker, I think that is found in Budget 2016 and, of course, in the Implementation Act here, is we're helping young Canadians succeed. Now more than ever, Mr. Speaker, it's important that post-secondary education remains affordable and accessible. Young Canadians must have access to meaningful work at the beginning of their careers and must not be burdened by increasing student debt. Budget 2016 makes post-secondary education more affordable for students from low and middle-income families and will make it easier to repay student debt. Budget 2016 will also help young Canadians gain experience and extra income and find good jobs after graduation. Budget 2016 represents a strong first step in our plan to put people first and to deliver the help they need now while investing for the years and decades to come. With these investments, and inspired by a sense of fairness, we are ensuring that Canada's best days lie ahead. I therefore encourage all members in this House to support this bill. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Questions and comments? The honourable member for Edmonton Riverbend.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Despite the obvious hilarity at the beginning of the member's speech on the direction that he plans to take this economy, would like to ask the member if he's heard from his constituents, who he's obviously consulted with at length, as he indicates, if they support the changes to the CPP, particularly small businesses, and also the carbon tax, which is looming. On us here in Alberta, we're really feeling that that's not a positive thing out of this budget. Yet he spoke. I didn't hear anything negative about this budget. So curious if there's anything on those two fronts that he would if he feels comfortable going back and talking to his constituents about.
Honourable member for Newmarket Aurora.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank my honourable colleague from Edmonton Riverbend, who I know has his constituents' best interest at heart, and I know he works hard for his constituents in his riding, as he should and as we all do, Mr. Speaker. But to be frank, Mr. Speaker, the people I speak to in my riding are impressed with what we're doing to grow the economy. They're hopeful that we're investing in the future. They also see the importance of making sure the CPP remains robust and well-funded well into the long term. So they appreciate, Mr. Speaker, those parts of the budget and that part of our policy that is being implemented, Mr. Speaker. So in regards to hearing negative things from me in the budget speech, it shouldn't surprise a member that I'm supporting this budget and will highlight the positive components of the budget and how those positive components play out in my riding, Mr. Speaker. And as the member may know, the price on pollution that our government is going to put on is only a framework that will be in place if the provincial government doesn't have adequate system in place. I'm from Ontario. The system that's going to be in place in Ontario will exceed the federal standards, and therefore the federal price on pollution will not actually even apply in Ontario because the Ontario system will be robust enough to meet all the federal standards, Mr. Speaker. And my people in my riding think that the people who pollute should pay for that pollution. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.